everybody? Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell. Excuse me. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, comics, just creative. I love it all, you know. So definitely appreciate you stopping by today. We are here each and every week, every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live to the Facebook group community. Make sure you can get plugged into the Facebook group community, facebook.com/group/The Color of Motion. Get plugged in. Also, you can find us on Instagram at The Color of Motion. But I always kind of highly encourage everybody to get plugged into the YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the bell notification at Don Terrell. There you can check out all the great episodes that we've had for the show. 5 seasons, man. We're kicking off 5 years of doing the show. So you got 5 years of episodes to watch. But I definitely always encourage you to get plugged into the YouTube community for sure. Like I said, this year, let me make sure I got my confetti going, because this is a celebration year. This is 5 years, so we're celebrating the whole season. 5 years doing great gift giveaways and a lot of contests and a lot of fun this year. One of the contests is, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel during the live episode, you know, which we will see a little widget come up that somebody subscribed. But if you subscribe during any of the live broadcasts, we will give you a gift out to you. So definitely make sure you get plugged in to the community and win your gift. Miss Maggie, appreciate you there. Looks like y'all had fun, just as much fun during the winter as we had. It's hard to believe that you can't even tell right now that we had a winter blast come through 2 days ago, 2-3 days ago. But I can see that you made it through okay. So I appreciate you tuning in for sure. I also want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor for the show, DG Graphics. They do all the graphics, overlays, animations, and everything good that make us look good for sure. And if you are a business or a brand looking to stand out, looking to clarify your message and create engaging content, then you definitely need to look them up. Again, always appreciate DG Graphics for supporting the show as always. I think that's pretty much it. We are ready to go. Miss Maggie? Yeah, you did. Like I said, I saw some of the videos and it looked like y'all had fun. Y'all got like way more snow than we did, at least in my area where I was at. We didn't get that much, maybe 2 inches. But like I said, super excited about this episode. Like I said, always super excited about you joining us for sure. Make sure that you also stop by the store, pick you up some swag items, you know, as well. You can get you some great gear. Definitely want to see everybody, as many people as I can, in Color of Motion gear. So you can stop by thecolorofmotion.net/swag, pick you up some nice hoodies, you know, great gear. All the new designs and stuff aren't up yet, so they will be up within the next week or so, some new, with the new logo and everything. But you can get you some vintage designs for sure while they last. Alrighty, like I said, I think we are about ready to kick off. You know the drill. Hop into the comments, say hey, where you tuning in from, so I can give you the shout out that you so richly deserve. But you know, without further ado, I think we can get this show on the road. What do you say, hey? Awesome. We are are back and ready to get this party started. Right, like I said, I've been looking forward to this episode for a while. I can turn off this confetti now, so I don't get covered with it. But I've been looking forward to this episode for a while. Ever since we connected, been just can't wait to sit down and talk with my next guest. She has such a fun personality, works at such a great company as well, and looking forward to just sitting down, diving into this industry that she has been a part of for quite a while. So, my next guest, let me roll up here, has worked as a production assistant at Titmouse Studios, assisting the story, editorial, and retakes department on JENTRY, CHAU versus the Underworld for Netflix. She also volunteers at Asians in Animation as a creative director for the creative team, which is where, we kind of got connected and where, I think I first heard of her with that organization. We're going to talk about that as well. But everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Miss Alice Jiang. Alice.
Hey Don,
Hey, how are you?
doing great today.
Awesome, awesome. Like I said, I've been looking so forward to this episode ever since we connected last year. And we're going to talk a little bit about Asians in animation, kind of where I heard about you and got connected, through you, I think through Jeanette, Lara, I think connected us or told me about you to reach out. Um, but definitely been looking forward to sitting down, just talking about the industry, talking about your role, kind of what you do within this industry. Um, didn't kind of get into it in your bio, but kind of tell me a little bit about like how you kind of got started, kind of in this space. Were you always kind of creative? Did you always love animation?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I definitely loved animation growing up. I think it's a pretty common story among people who work in animation. I think most of us grew up loving the medium. But I didn't always want to work in animation. I didn't even know it was kind of a pathway that I could pursue. But once I was about to graduate high school, I was like, okay, I have to go to college now. I have to choose what I want to do for a living. What am I going to do? And then I kind of went back and I was like, I want to do something that I love doing, which is watching cartoons. So let me try making cartoons this time. So I kind of make that decision right then and there. I'm going to try my best to work in the animation industry. Don't know how, don't know where, but I'm going to try.
Okay.
So very gutsy kind of move starting there. And so went
Well,
to school for art.
so where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to school at and get your training, for animation?
Yeah, I went to school at the Ohio State University. They have an animation program there, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. But I was like, I'm going to learn animation, going to learn how it's made, and then hopefully work in the industry.
Okay. Well, being a Buckeye myself, what made you
Oh, are you?
choose?
Oh my
Yes,
gosh, amazing.
I was going to ask you what made you choose Ohio State. Are you from
No,
Ohio?
not at all.
So,
I was raised in Idaho, which is
okay,
somewhat in the middle of nowhere, Boise, Idaho.
Boise.
But I mean, it was kind of a mix of factors. I applied to a lot of different animation programs in different universities, but honestly, my art background was not super robust. My portfolio was not that great, but I wanted to try my best, and so in terms of like artistic skills, I didn't have the chops to make it into a really high level art program, but there were a few offers from a few different universities, and then OSU gave me a pretty good financial aid package as well. So that kind of sealed the deal in that regard. And I
Ooh,
knew that OSU was a really big school.
yeah.
And another passion of mine was actually in the sciences as well. I do have a deep love and appreciation for science, so I also went to OSU because I wanted to double major in physics.
Yeah.
So I knew that it was a big school, so it would have a lot of opportunities to learn different things, including artistic focus and like a
Yeah.
science focus.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I'm a Buckeye through and through. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I love me some Ohio State. Everybody asks me down here, "What's a Buckeye?" You see, you have to. They
it's a
actually
great
don't believe,
campus.
but they actually don't believe a Buckeye is an actual. It's like a nut.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
an
the little
almost like
seeds.
an acorn. Yeah, nut. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
on campus they like sold those like little chocolate Buckeyes. Really tasty.
well, I was more the real Buckeye, getting hit with the real
Yeah.
Buckeye.
Yeah.
oh man, but yeah, Ohio State. So, did you ever have any illusion of doing anything other than being in animation? You said you got like a science kind of degree as well. I mean, did you even think that that was something that you were going to get into, or were you just using it as a fallback kind of position type of thing?
Yeah, totally. I think in my mind it was sort of a fallback kind of option. My heart wasn't super in it for the career path. I was definitely doing physics so that I had something in my back pocket, but really animation was my passion. So I wanted to learn both. I was in the sciences for the love of learning about science rather than pursuing it as a career.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we're going to dive
Which
into
is a
this
little
as
bit funny because usually it's the opposite. People usually do art for the love of art and then
yeah.
doing
Well, it's
science as their
it's
career.
interesting though. Through all the creatives that I talked to and all the friends that I've talked to, yeah, they may have, like I said, had a passion for it and started, young in art and stuff, but they never thought they could make money or that it was something that they can make money doing. It's like, okay, this
Yeah,
was just something that I would be doing for the love of it. And then they realize, okay, somebody actually makes animation and gets paid to make animation type of
yeah,
work. But I know another thing, and it might be driven home a little bit deeper or harder in the Asian community of getting a kind of more practical kind of degree. But
yeah, a
did your
little bit.
parents kind of really embrace the fact that you were wanting, this was a path that you were wanting to go on, or did they want to really kind of get you down a more practical kind of profession, so to speak?
Totally. I think when I first told them that I wanted to do art, I think they were shocked and confused, but they needed to sort out their own thoughts. They're like, "What? This is totally out of left field. We never would have thought that you wanted to do art." Because I grew up like doing art kind of casually, but I
Mm-hmm.
never pursued it very seriously. But then when I suddenly wanted to go to school for college for art,
Yeah.
it was a big shock to them. But I think as kind of we didn't have too many arguments, I wouldn't say. They just were confused why I would choose it rather
Yeah.
than being against me. And so kind of as I made that decision, I kind of explained to them how serious I was in wanting to seriously pursue this as
Yeah.
a passion and as a career path. And once they saw how serious I was, they um were really supportive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at what point did you decide to make that shift? Because you said, well, your art skills weren't like, top notch thing. So at what point did you decide to make a shift into being on the production side or feeling like, well, maybe I'm not kind of cut out to be on the artistic side or an animator or that type of thing, but maybe somewhere on the production side I can find my space? What was it that kind of, showed you that? And at what point did that kind of click for you?
Totally. I think going to school, I was first driven by that passion for animation, but I didn't have a clear direction. I didn't actually know that much about the industry. I was still so young, but
Yeah.
I think that was the benefit of going to a school that taught me more about animation. I learned more about the process, and it was through going through those classes that I realized, oh, this is I I do have the ability to produce animation. I would say middle of the lane, mediocre, but I'm not outstanding at it, I would
Yeah.
say. And so and also the passion wise, sort of shifted. And I think what the big shifting factor was actually a lot of the student orgs at OSU. I don't know how familiar you are, but OSU has a huge focus on club activities and student life. And I got really, really involved because they push it so hard. And I also wanted to, have the full college experience,
Yeah.
do lots of clubs and activities. And so it was kind of through that sideways path that I got interested in production because I became the vice president of a K-pop dance club. I really love
Oh
K-pop,
wow.
and then I know, kind of out of the field, but I became the vice president there, and we organized a lot of events, which are kind of a lot of production related skills, a lot of administrative skills. I also kind of formed my own club on campus that was like animation career specific because I found that the education that I received was more skills focused and not as career focused, and I wanted to pursue animation as a career, but there were more limited opportunities. So I wanted to create them for myself along with my peers. And so leading those clubs gave me a lot of more administrative experience. And then also it kind of helped build my network too as I pursued those. Very similar to you, Don, but I think on a smaller scale, I would like invite guest speakers to kind of talk about the industry so I could learn more.
Yeah.
As I learned more, I was like, oh, there's a whole field of production. I
Yeah.
think people know that production assistants exist, but they don't really know what production assistants do or what the
Yeah.
kind of like field of production does within
Yeah.
animation. So as I learned more, I was like, oh, this is really interesting, and it's similar to what I'm doing at the clubs already, and it kind of combines that the passion of like bringing people together, organizing things, along with the passion for the
Yeah.
animation industry together, and I found like, yes, this is definitely the right path. And so I started leaning away from the actual artistic focus and pivoting more towards production.
Yeah, yeah, and I tell it, which I guess is one of the things that I hope people pull away from this watching this show, is that there's so many different things that you can do within the industry,
Yeah.
that a lot of people feel like, "Ah, I need to be able to draw, or I need to be able to animate, or I need to be able to write, type of thing. And that just may not necessarily be your strength or your thing. You may be a people person. So
Yeah, absolutely.
human sources and recruiting may be your thing, but you can still be attached to that industry that you love, the animation industry, type of thing. There's so many avenues to go down. Do you find that you're a part of Asians in animation? I'm sure you speak at different places and have done panels and things like that. Do you find that a lot of up and coming artists think like that? They don't know of just other things, even if it's being a receptionist at a studio. You're exceptional at greeting people and feeling like that they have to be an artist or they have to have their hands on type of thing. Do you see a lot of like up and coming artists feeling like that's the thing, or do you feel like artists just like you said aren't aware of just all the other things that they can be doing within the industry, and feeling like they have to have a certain kind of talent for the animation type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I speak to a lot of people who are looking to break in, rise up through the animation industry, and I feel that, yeah, that rings pretty true. I'd say that I feel like the animation industry doesn't advertise itself very well. It's pretty low key in terms of how to get in. So people are kind of lacking that information on what jobs are available, like how does this industry function? What are the
Yeah,
roles within it? I feel like a lot of that is pretty mysterious to like the general person who doesn't put in a lot of work to actually like research or hasn't put in the time yet
yeah,
to look into those kinds of things. So yeah, I think people do kind of have a misconception of how to be involved with the industry. There's a lot more avenues that people can find their way in than people would think. Um,
yeah,
Generally, there's so many moving parts within animation, but for like even for artistic roles, I think um, people do have a different ideas of how to get that first position where there's certain ways that like some artists aren't even aware that there might be like junior level artist positions available. Some of them
Yeah.
think you have to be a fully fledged artist before you can make it in. So there's different ways to make it work.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Mr. DeMille, appreciate you stopping by there. Happy Saturday to you there, brother. As always, I appreciate you stopping by. We have a new visitor, man. My man, Donnell, a good friend of mine. Good vibe, useful content. I hope she tells her friends. Yeah, which I always encourage all my guests to promote their episodes and to really, get the message out there. But I appreciate you, brother, for stopping by and checking out the show. I think this is a first for Donnell, at least first for commenting, for sure. Probably checked it out. Anise, hi from Atlanta. Go Alice.
Hey, hi.
Awesome, awesome. We were kind of talking about it, a little before break, but the industry's, been having some challenges the last couple
Yeah.
of, years. It's been, going through its phase there. And, we're going to dive into kind of what your thoughts are moving forward. But just over the past couple of years, you've been fortunate, obviously, to have steady work with Titmouse and everything. But you obviously, I'm sure, have had friends that have had, are going through something, or if he even had to fully pivot out of the industry into something else because they haven't been able to find, studio work and everything like that. What are you seeing from your friends, that are trying to, still get into, more steady work?
Totally. It's like the industry definitely, as you said, has been pretty rocky these past couple of years. I think even entering the industry when I did, I was feeling very uncertain about my chances. I'm still, I would say, relatively new to the industry, but by now I've had a few years under my belt. But when I
Yeah,
entered the industry, it was in the middle of COVID. So it was very, very tough. I was a Buckeye based in Ohio. So I'm like, how am I gonna make this work? But I made a lot of good connections and that's
yeah,
how I landed on Gentry. But I think I was I had a bunch of peers who also wanted to work in the animation industry um and it's been pretty disheartening for them. I think out of my graduating class, I think I'm the only one who's made it into the animation industry that year. I think thus far, I think maybe a few more have made it
yeah,
into some other shows, but it's been pretty slow going.
yeah. Well, it brings me to this point. Do you feel like schools or even, just educational programs or schools are really driving home the point to, these creatives coming out that they're not just competing with their peers there around them, they're competing globally now. You got so many people coming into it. I've never seen so many artists. It wasn't until
Yeah,
it wasn't until I started doing the show and really started meeting people. It's like, man, there's a lot of creatives out there. Just,
yeah.
it's not just here in the States, it's all over the world. Do you think that plays obviously a part in, just having a hard time getting in the studios because now we are competing with on a global scale now?
Yeah, it kind of depends on like what field you're aiming for, and I think which school you're going to. Some schools are more plugged into the industry than others. I
Yeah,
think for OSU, at the time I was there, was not plugged into the industry really that deeply. It had a few like side connections, which I leveraged to the best of my ability.
yeah,
Um, but I think OSU wise did not really prepare me as much, like from this institution wise. The reason why I felt more prepared was kind of because I had to put in the work outside of school
mm,
to really like find and like grab those opportunities where there were.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
and as for global competition, like I said, it kind of depends on which field you're going into. I think the states are much more pre-production focused now,
yeah,
which is also not so well advertised. I think in the animation industry is pretty on the down low, but I feel like for people who have been in it for a while, kind of know that at least within the states, most of the jobs are only in pre-production and post-production now. And anything that's in the production like animation related, is not so much in the States anymore. So that competition is really, really tough for people looking at the middle of the lane kind of jobs.
Interesting, interesting for sure. Mr. DeVille, if some of these schools were really honest to students about the state of the industry and their chances of landing a job, they would probably go out of business. Just yeah, pretty much. Which kind of brings me to another point, and it's something I talk about a lot on the show, and it's just now this time that we live in, the power of controlling your own content. If you're a content creator, obviously, if you're not the type that's coming up with your own ideas and stories, then yeah, you're going to be, on the hunt for a job. But do you feel like more creators now, because of this time that we live in, are kind of looking more towards, okay, I can, like I said, go directly to my audience on social and build a platform that and monetize that platform very well if they do it right.
Totally. I think, um, and we've been kind of slowly seeing this shift in the past year or so. If you've been kind of paying attention, I think the indie scene has
Yeah,
been slowly growing and growing, and you've been seeing a lot of like people who can't find work in in the industry, or people who have worked in the industry but for one reason or another don't have the opportunity to continue working.
yeah,
Redirecting their passion and their skills into their own projects
yeah,
and kind of self-funding. It's not a perfect system, obviously. The indie landscape is very difficult still,
yeah,
but I think you're seeing more successes there and more people trying
yeah.
to produce their own content.
Well, I mean, obviously, it definitely takes a different mindset, and it takes that kind of mindset that, hey, I have to obviously go out and hunt for my food as opposed to it being killed and given to me. It's that
It
different
feels
mind.
that way.
Well, I mean, it is. Really, it is because you're the master of your own ship as opposed to working a 9 to 5. And trust me, I have a 9 to 5 and I've worked 9 to 5. It's a different mindset when you're the one that has to go out and find the work. Whereas you
Yeah.
weren't thinking about it when you were an employee. You were just doing the work. You didn't think about, you hope they brought in work to keep you employed, but you didn't think about going out to get clients. So, and bring in the dollars. You have to be really self-driven if you're going to
Yeah,
do that. But
absolutely.
the time that we live in the sense that you have all these channels now, you see the landscape of how things are going with studios downsizing, the market getting more crowded type of thing. How can I, like you said, how can I leverage and monetize my own skills and talent directly with an audience? Obviously, albeit it takes a lot of work, but
Yeah.
if you put in the work, you can see the benefits of it if you really put in the effort of, okay, I got my own revenue streams out there. I'm selling, designs, writing scripts and different things like that. But all of this stuff is, and if I'm a animator and got story ideas, there's YouTube. And we were
Yeah.
kind of talking a little bit before about the rise of streaming platforms and platforms that now are looking for content to bring on and purchase to be on.
Yeah.
So with all of that, do you think that that's you know kind of the way that it's going? Like I said, we talked a little about this, and the company that you're working for, Titmouse, is kind of like you were saying, a vendor style where they're not just tied into one studio that they do work for. They've got all these different studios that they can do animation work for. Do you see that as the way of where more studios are going? And two, do you think that's going to come from more smaller kind of niche kind of studios as opposed to the big Sonys and Disneys and that type of studio?
A little bit hard to say. I think at the end of the day, like the content that's produced for mass audiences will probably still be needing the support of those big studios because that's where the money is, but where the ideas are coming from, that might be a different place now. I think you're seeing a lot of like more independent creators coming up with their own ideas, building up their own audiences, and then maybe signing a deal with those bigger studios to get more support to make their ideas come like have a bigger audience, making it the way that they want it to be made with the full support of a full team. Animation is a really, really difficult medium. It's
Yeah.
pretty hard to be a one-man show. You do need a lot of people working together to make it happen. It's almost unescapable. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Like it's
you'll need the support of the money of a big studio to make things happen, on a big scale.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I guess if that's, like you said, deciding whether that's the route you go, somebody may be happy
Yeah,
with, just doing like YouTube, like a YouTube series,
exactly.
and they still garner over 100,000
Yeah.
views and stuff like that. But they're happy creating, and they got the control that they
Yes.
want, creating their own YouTube series and this and that. I think that's the thing. I think creators, I guess, are kind of waking up to the control that we have over
Mhm.
our own content and our own ideas, benefiting from them. And we're going to talk a little bit about this, as far as AI and being compensated for AI and how AI is. That's obviously, it's been around a while, but generative AI is kind of the hot topic, kind of now. You know, how are you looking at AI, and how have you seen it impact kind of your role and what you do? Has it kind of bled into your role, and how have you seen it kind of benefit or not benefit the industry?
Definitely. I think in production, there has been kind of talks of it's a little bit different because in production, it's a much more people-oriented kind of job than like artistic. We're not creating like the content, we're not drawing the pictures, we're not putting things together in
Yeah.
that way. So it's a little bit different, but that's not to say that like our jobs are particularly secure. At the moment, doesn't seem like there's going to be too much disruption, but on the horizon, a lot of the tech companies are making these AI assistants kind of things. And then you look at those tools and you wonder, can they replace what I'm doing at work? And I do see some parallels there, like the note taking skills. But until the tool can really like synthesize everything that like the job encapsulates, especially the human aspects of it, it's going to be really difficult to replace, I think, especially for production. All the lines you see on the resume of those hard skills, maybe those can all be replaced by a machine, but I think especially in production, it's all of those soft people skills that can't be put on a resume that like truly makes a strong production
Mm,
person really, really work on a team. And then like creatively for like uh like artistic side, um at least on the shows that I've been on, hasn't been a huge issue so far. All of the people who are leading those projects are pretty anti AI, so we've been kind of shielded from that kind of bubble.
yeah.
The creator of my first show, JENTRY CHAU, Echo, we were kind of already in production before AI really hit the scene, and then now on my current show, The Legend of Vox Machina, the creative minds behind it are the Critical Role team, and they have a very strong creative identity, and they're also have a very firm stance against AI. So at least things on my show right now are they really believe in the creative process and the creative minds on our team.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good to know for sure.
Yeah.
And it definitely, you know, AI is that thing that's going to be around, and it's making its impact
Yeah.
through the whole industry. Uh, I'm curious, as you were like going through schooling, and going through your education and getting your degree, um, did you were there things that surprised you as you were coming into the industry that school didn't quite prepare you for, or didn't just kind of, oh wow, okay, I didn't expect this type of thing as you were coming into the industry?
I think going to school, I was fairly naive with how the world worked, but I wanted to do my best to make things work. And I think one of the biggest things that surprised me was how much networking really matters in almost every single career field, but especially in entertainment. I That was something that completely surprised me, and I really had to build up those networking muscles in order to succeed. That was something that really, really surprised me that I was also not confident in. I was not confident in my networking ability.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's almost kind of I want to say oxymoron. I don't know if that's the right word, but oxymoron saying that to an artist because we're so used to being kind of introverted and kind of in
yeah.
our own space type of
You're
thing.
like, "Oh, my work will just like, speak for itself. Like people will see how good I am just by the
Um,
merit of how well everything what
uh,
how amazing my work is."
I
But
tell you, just I quickly realized that talking to all my friends here, just even in the outer, fringes of the industry, I quickly realized how important, just relationships are. So much.
yeah.
It's such a big industry, but small in the sense of, hey, y'all
Yeah,
all
there's like a
know
lot of
each
people
other.
around, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, once you know somebody, you're like, wow, like, I mean, that's kind of how I got this second job here at The Legend of Vox Machina was because of my network. I was like, oh wait, I knew this manager, and then also a friend that I happened to make worked on the show, and then the position opened up,
Yeah.
and then I had recommendations coming from people that I knew, and then even somebody that like I knew this person and she knew another person who worked on this show. And so I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I didn't even know you knew this person." How did
It's a
that work
spider
out?
web. It's a spider
It
web.
it's a spider
Everybody's
web.
connected some kind of way. I
Yeah.
tell you. Well, do you find that that's a skill, or do you see, like you said, that was something that you had to work at? But do you see that that's a skill that a lot of new artists or artists coming into the industry really lack? Is that kind, or do you feel like they're the younger generation, so they're just used to having that kind of personality to where they just blend in type of thing? What have you seen as far as personality wise from the generation that's coming out now?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like you said earlier, Dawn. It's like I think a lot of artists are a little bit more introverted, so they usually struggle with the kind of networking aspect of things. It kind of depends on also like which school they're coming out of. Some schools prepare their students a little bit better with those
Yeah,
connections than
yeah,
others, so that can also be a pretty big impact on what they're like coming out and how ready they are to, connect with others. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I found that some people's personalities just lend to that. Whether they went, to school or that, they just have an outgoing personality. So they just, that type, regardless.
Yeah, it's definitely something I had to intentionally like work on
I
for
did too.
myself. I'm not that inclined naturally to be that way. But I think I've gotten better. Still
Yeah,
not perfect.
believe it or not, I do too. People ask you, hey, you don't mind, you love being on camera. Hey, I still get nervous before every show. All of that stuff. It's just, I'm not a it's not a natural thing for me. I'm not like a actor or that's just used to being on camera. So I do know, and especially like I said, as artists, we're all used to you know being in our own little kind of myopic space. And trust me, I've had my share of guests that I've asked to be on the show. No, I'm behind the scenes type of person, and I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
get it, I get it.
And also, I think growing up when you make art, it feels like a very solitary kind of like thing to work on. But like when you enter the industry, you realize, oh, animation is a team effort.
Yeah,
Everybody is working on the same thing together, and that teamwork aspect is really, really key, even
yeah,
for artists,
yeah,
to know how their work fits in with everybody. Also, why I love production, I get to be a little bit nosy in every single department. I get to
yeah.
see everything come together, and help those connections work.
It which, like I said, kind of leads into kind of my next kind of question and topic of, do you think that's a good, a good thing? Obviously, you have to decide, hey, I want to be that type of person that just likes to have their hands in a lot of different, parts of the whole production thing. But as a artist, do you think that's a good thing to know, to know the whole kind of pipeline of how, even if you're just in art, the art side of it or the modeling side of it, but being aware of just obviously the pipeline, because it all connects with each other. Trust me, a modeler needs to be connected with the rigger, otherwise he's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
model something. So do you feel like that's a big thing, big crucial element of the whole pipeline and being aware of the whole pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for every artist, it's really important to understand that. But on the flip side, if you're just getting started, I feel like it's fine if you don't have as much insight into those kinds of things. But once you get into the swing of things, once you do land a job and you are speak with your coworkers, connect with them, see what they're up to. I think having a broader vision once you're in a team to really understand what your team is doing is
Yeah.
really helpful to each other.
Okay. Now I want to really kind of dig a little deeper into kind of how you slid into production on the production side of it, because like I said, you went in, OSU, and you were learning art and everything, and I find it interesting. I don't know, maybe you do. There's a lot of online schools, but they're more specialized. Do you feel like
Yeah.
you get the production side of learning at like brick and mortar schools like SCAD and
Mhm.
Ringling? You'll be able to see the whole production side of it. And do you feel like those schools that are online, like Noman, and well, I think they got it in person, but those schools like Noman and Animation Mentor and those are really kind of skill specific about what you want to learn and get into type of thing. Um, what was that thing that kind of moved you at that point, that you knew, you realized that your art skills wasn't that, but what was the thing that the project that kind of you were working on that said, okay, this is something that I can do?
Yeah. I think touching on a few of the aspects of what you just said, I feel like the online schools that are very skills focused probably don't lend themselves as well into production because they're very siloed. They're
Mhm.
very focused on that one particular task and being and excelling at that task, which I think is great for artists, but not so much for production because production you need to have a little bit of insight into each little pocket and understanding at least how each pocket works a little bit, how they connect. Um, and I think with traditional brick and mortar schools might help a little bit more in that regard, but even then, I wouldn't say that they're that much superior compared
Yeah,
to just those skill-focused ones. I think what brings the most value for production jobs is having production experience, which I think traditionally brick and mortar schools do generally provide a little bit more of that. And what I mean by that is like producing your own short films, being in the process of creating something from beginning to end is very valuable for production to see how it works. Uh, and I think what drew me to production is I consider myself someone who makes things happen and makes sure it finishes. And I
yeah,
think that's what some artists might also find that they struggle with their own work and why having a production team there to help is so important is that when an animated project is usually very complicated. There's lots of moving parts. So having somebody who's there to organize things, make sure the train is running and running on time is really, really important.
yeah, yeah. And I think, like I said, very one of the key people I guess you need when you're thinking about doing an animation is getting a production assistant or somebody that really understands the pipeline of what it takes to put a production together. for sure.
Yeah, or at least like, as an artist, having basic understanding, working with your fellow artists, you'll kind of discover those production things on what you guys need to work together effectively and to make sure that you finish the project. I
Yeah.
think it's really fun to start something, but the projects that win at the end of the day are the ones that finish. Uh,
Yeah.
and you know, it's it's a little hard to say that, but it's true.
No, and I tell people, like I said, and I have a saying that imperfect something is better than a perfect nothing. So it's
Yes.
better to have something done and it not be, completely the
Yeah.
way you want it, as opposed to not doing anything at all. Uh, Gaston, Dana, I'm sure some of this backwards maybe Dana Gaston or Gaston Dana. So I'm not sure if you're a man or woman, but I appreciate you stopping by. Greetings from South Texas, everyone. So thank you, Gaston, for stopping by. Um, and we're, like I said, diving. We're having a fun conversation. If you're just jumping in, we're having an amazing and fun conversation with my friend Alice Jiang, production assistant with Titmouse Studios. Um, you kind of touched on a couple of the qualities, starting and finishing something. What are some of the other things that you feel like somebody that's looking into getting to be a production assistant should have or should think about that, okay, I should, really start to work on these if I really want to get into production and being a production assistant?
Yeah, I think having solid people skills is really important, and that's such a vague answer. Like, how do I get people skills? And some of it's natural inclination, some of it is practice, but I think the way that you get those people skills is by working on a team. And I think being a team leader, especially, is really valuable in any kind of form where you're trying to bring people together to work together. You'll kind of build those kind of people skills, learning how different people operate. How do you speak to an artist? How do you speak to an artistic leader? How do you speak to a director? How do you speak to
Yeah,
a manager? Those, how do you speak to an executive? Those kinds of things are all different things that production connects and needs to juggle between. You'll learn that, like, letting it, maybe there's certain information that you should let an artist know so that they can do their job effectively. Oh, but you don't necessarily need to tell an artist that the directors were arguing between red and blue for like 10 minutes. Like, you just need to tell them that they decided blue at the end of the day. So, you'll learn these kinds of skills, and then, oh, maybe the executive was really unhappy with a decision and they argued about it for 30 minutes, and then finally the directors put their foot down and said, "No, our idea is better." So there's these kinds of back end things that production deals with that
yeah,
kind of shields the artists to be able so that they can focus on what they need to do to make the show as best as
yeah,
possible.
yeah,
But as production, you need to learn to weather those storms, navigate those difficult conversations,
yeah.
um, and
Yeah. Was
really
that
excel.
something difficult for you? Or I mean, how long did it take you? Obviously, like you said, you're not a newbie, but you've been in the industry, three going on, 4 years, now. So you've been on this, ride for a little bit. Was that how long, did it take you before you felt comfortable? Okay, I get that, you just coming in, maybe the imposter thing of, doing the work and, hey, I'm at a studio working on, this is award winning film, at a production type of thing. How long did it kind of take you to kind of fit into that kind of space of being confident with what you were saying and how you were kind of working and talking between the different people?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a funny question. I think maybe unlike a lot of people, I don't actually struggle that much with imposter syndrome.
Oh,
I
okay.
felt pretty comfortable jumping right in. I was pretty eager to do things. Of course, there were things I was unsure about. I was like, I didn't know exactly how things worked, but I really relied on my coordinators and my manager to like really talk things through, walk me through things when I wasn't
Yeah.
sure about what I needed to do. And I think part part of my ability to succeed is the ability to learn on my feet very quickly and kind of assess the situation quickly and accurately. And I think that helped me when I got into those tough situations to figure out what I needed to do really fast,
Gotcha.
which I think
Well,
is also a good skill for production.
obviously, you got to be able to think on your feet for sure when stuff comes up. But what percentage of that would you say is that you picked up from school, and what percentage
Mm.
of that was just part of your personality? You were just that type of person that you were able to kind of run with stuff and not let stuff kind of fluster. You just needed to learn how to do it, but just know that you can do it, type of thing. So what percentage of that was a skill that you picked up through your schooling, and what percentage of that do you feel like was just an innate thing that was a part of your personality?
I would say probably 50-50. It's
Okay.
pretty balanced. Wasn't I wasn't quite that confident going into school, so I gained a lot of that through schooling and a lot of those extracurricular clubs, like I mentioned. Being in those leadership positions really helped boost my confidence, boosted my people skills, and so that helped a lot going into like the animation industry, into a work environment where I needed to do things right, and then part of it was learning as I went through the show. What helped a lot was when I joined the show, it was still in its early stages. So in
Mm,
terms of the timeline and how fast things were going, it was a ramp up kind of situation. So it started off slower, so I had more space to learn at the
mm,
beginning. And then once things got busier, then I had already taken that time to learn in the beginning, so it
yeah,
wasn't as overwhelming. Of course, there were always crunch situations. There were definitely
yeah,
situations where I was out of my depth, and were really tough to work
yeah,
through. But I think in the animation industry, people are really helpful
yeah,
and people are willing to, lend a hand. So I really leaned on my teammates and
yeah.
my coworkers in those difficult situations.
Well, do you think you would have had that time had you like went straight into, say, a bigger company that was just, like I said, a lot of the smaller companies, they have the time and kind of the runway to kind of work with a person just coming into the industry, whereas some companies, they want you to come in hitting the ground running and
Yeah.
just, and they're working on major stuff. And so if you can't keep up and kind of get
Hmm.
yourself through it, you're gonna drown, type of thing. How much
Yeah.
of the fact that you came into and you got kind of connected with a company that was a little smaller, that had the runway and gave you the runway to really fit into your role?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a two-parter. Part of it is the company and part of it is what stage the show is in. Uh I I think it's more common for, most of the crew to be onboarded at the beginning of the show, which is I think ideal for learning because you do get that ramp up if you're on at the beginning of a show.
Hmm.
Whereas oppose the show that I'm currently on, um I joined in the middle of the show, so that's kind
Mm,
of a different expectation. If you join at the beginning of a show, you'll kind of naturally, with how things run, get
yeah.
more of a ramp up. Whereas if you join right in the middle, you kind of have to fit right into what they're doing, and that learning curve is much steeper.
Mm,
Um, and in terms of studio size, it kind of depends on how studios operate, at least within production and with production assistants in particular. I actually find it's kind of the opposite. I think at smaller studios, production assistants have a harder time learning than at bigger studios because generally at bigger studios, they have a bigger production team. So each production person is, especially production assistants, are asked
hmm.
to do less. They have less responsibility. But at least on my show, the production assistants were definitely asked to take on a lot more workload than is typical for a
Yeah.
normal production assistant because we had less hands. So we had to do more, and I had to learn on my feet more than a typical PA would, I would say.
So, what is it that determines the number of production assistants that will be on any one particular show? Uh, I mean, do they do it
Yeah.
by episode, or do they just have a set number? Okay, we know this is going to be a half hour, hour episode or stuff, and so we know this, or is it budget that kind of dictates, well, we can only pay for this many production assistants? What's kind of the thing that determines how many production assistants are going to be kind of on any one particular project?
Yeah, I think it's a variety of factors there as well. I think the bottom line is obviously budget. They can really only afford how many people, but part of there's also flexibility within that. It's a combination of the budget and your production schedule, and then your production team setup. And so those kind of factors are tied to like how big is the show that you're trying to make, how
Yeah,
long is it, what kind of crew, how much crew do you need to make this show happen? And those kind of factors are determined by your line producer, your production manager, and obviously like the EPs and the show that's the studio that's like paying for the show to be
yeah,
made. So all those kind of factors kind of being combined. I think like the production manager and the line producer are creating the production schedule and creating the kind of production structure on how many people need to be there. So they'll kind of determine what format is best for that show. On my first show, we only had a production team of 6, and we were by department, not by episode. So we did one thing for the department, but for every single episode. But some shows are more episodic, where like you have a team of production people and they bring that show from beginning to end, and
hmm
say they only do like even episodes, so like 2, 4, and 6, and then the others do like 1, 3, and 5.
yeah,
So it depends on those kinds of factors. My current show has a much bigger budget. The show itself is honestly maybe just a little bit more ambitious than the last show that I was on,
yeah.
but our budget's bigger, and so our production team is bigger. And so as a production assistant, it's I've had an easier time on this show for a variety of
Well,
reasons.
what's the smallest size team as far as production assisting have you been on? The smallest.
Yeah, that
You
would be
said
my
this one
last
was
show. We
6.
had
You said this
Yeah,
one
the
was kind
last
of
one
6.
was Yeah, last one was 6. We had It was like a production assistant and then a production coordinator, and then I was in the story and edit team. Then we had another one that was PA, PC, and that was design. And then the last one we had PA, PC, and they were for shipping.
Yeah,
So there was 6 of us, and then the PM on top. My
gotcha.
current show is a lot bigger. We have we're also by department, but there's usually more folks for each department. I think we have 2 PAs and 2 PCs just for design, so it's 4 people right there. And then there's a PA and PC for story. There's a PA PC for retakes.
Yeah,
And I believe the design department also kind of handles shipping on my current show. But then outside of that, we have a whole other production team helping with script stuff, with record stuff. Our executive
mm,
assistant is more involved as well. So like when we also have a music assistant, which like the music responsibilities was all for my PM on my last show. So a lot of things were really absorbed into multiple departments on my last show, whereas this one everything is spread out. People have
mm,
their departments that they can
yeah.
handle really well.
I tell you, man, there's so many moving parts. It's just mind-boggling for sure. Again,
Yeah.
for for everybody just joining in, we're having an amazing conversation with my friend Alice here, production assistant with Titmouse. Uh, I want to dive into your connections with AIA, Asians in Animation. But before I do dive into that, I do want to ask you. Titmouse is they if for those of you that haven't seen the styles and animations that Titmouse does, they do some amazing 2D, 3D styles, but they have a unique kind of flavor to them. They're more adult, a lot of
Yeah.
adult humor and stuff. Is that the type of animation that you enjoy, working on, or because some people like the more obviously Nickelodeon, just really clean you style. Some people like really serious anime, style type of things. Is that a style that you really enjoy? Really sinking your teeth into, and is there any other kind of animation or stories that you would really love to kind of be a part of?
Yeah, totally. I think the style that Titmouse is known for definitely is not the kind of style of animation that I particularly enjoy watching. But I will say the shows that I'm working on, I really enjoy the kind of animation of the shows that I'm on. So I
Yeah,
think Titmouse as a studio, they kind of have those flagship shows that they're really well known for, but they have a lot of projects that they're working on,
yeah,
lots of different kinds of shows, totally different vibes on each one.
yeah,
So I think that's one of the unique things about Titmouse is that kind of the culture or the feeling of like what you're working on really depends on what show you're on. And
yeah.
at least on Gentry, I felt really at home, and I think Gentry as a show really is what I like to watch. And currently on The Legend of Vox Machina, I mean, I've been a D&D fan for a while, so it's really one of a dream show to work on. So I absolutely enjoy working on this show as well.
Well, I'm interested because, like I said, we talked a little before the show and a little bit, through the show, and Gentry's on Netflix. We're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of stuff coming out now, a lot of different styles. Obviously, Into the Spider Verse kind of kicked off this, hand drawn style and kind of opening the gates to studios trying different things.
Yeah.
Now Arcane has just come out not that long ago, and they're making waves and just their style and what they did in animation. What are some of the styles that you look at it like, wow, this is really cool. It was really done well, and it just kind of blows you away. What are some of the things that you've seen that just really kind of stuck with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of my biggest influences growing up has to be anime. I'm always blown away by kind of like the diversity of genre and storytelling that I see in anime that I watch. I think what's particularly interesting is seeing how that kind of storytelling and is kind of influencing some of the studios here in the West. You can see a lot of those influences permeating through the industry, especially if you're newer shows that are getting greenlit now, having those influences. You can see that, like, I think on Gentry was definitely influenced a lot by anime, even though it was produced by, and for a Western audience.
Nice, nice. Well, I want to talk a little bit about. It's hard, like I said, it's hard to believe we're going past an hour here. So, like I said, for all of you that are just joining in, we've been having an amazing conversation. You definitely, if you're just catching in now, you definitely don't want to go back and catch some of the earlier stuff. But I want to know how you got kind of connected and plugged into Asians in animation, and I want to talk a little bit about your connection with them, and the inroads that you're making through that organization.
Totally. It's something that I'm really excited about, honestly. Um, like as I kind of said before, I did a lot of extracurricular work at school. And even growing up, I feel like volunteering my time is kind of a core value that I have. I really enjoy sharing my experiences, uplifting the community around me. I That's something that I really believe in. And so the way that I joined Asians in Animation was actually through my coworker on Gentry. My coworker had been with Asians in Animations for over a year at that point, and she invited me to join in the organization uh to help her kind of run some of the internal things that happened in there because she saw that she knew that I had good production skills, and
Mhm.
I think personality wise we became fast friends. So that's kind of how I joined Asians in Animation. I first joined as a creative coordinator, and then I kind of rose the ranks pretty quickly due to some internal changes, and I became creative director. And the friend that brought me in became the creative chair above me. So we have been working really closely this entire time. At first, we were making a lot of the social media content that you see for Asians in Animation that was produced by our team.
Yeah.
So really proud of the work that we've been doing there.
Well, I want to dive, like I said, into just the whole purpose of Asians in
Yeah.
animation. I think I've actually gone to a couple. Yeah, like I said, I've gone to a couple because I think Jeanette invited me to one. I think Sarah invited me to one. So I've been to a couple of them. But uh, what impact do you feel like the organization is going to make? And one, why do you see the need for it? really? I mean, are you seeing this gap within the industry now? And we're going to dive in a little into this too, because I've gone to some Lixa. There's Latinas in animation. There's Afro in
Yeah.
animation. There's so many different ethnic animation groups or organizations. And we're gonna, like I said, I'm going to dive a little into just the connectivity of all of them. But from your perspective in the industry, as it pertains to being Asian, what have you seen in just the creatives, the stories, and just what Asians in animation is trying to do, and what is that thing that they're wanting to see and get?
Yeah. At least for me personally, through Asian animation when I joined, I wanted to help other Asian people get into the animation industry. And I also wanted to meet other Asian people who were working in the industry. Those were my two goals. And a lot of the other things that I really care about are skills building,
Mm-hmm.
helping younger artists get the skills needed, get the information that's kind of like a little bit more gate kept, a little bit harder to find, and share that information with people so that they can succeed in the industry. And I think having the support of people who are similar to you, who come from a similar background, is really important. There's that deeper level of connection that's harder to kind of establish with a wider group. I think you have that inherent understanding, and we have a lot of similar struggles that I think that we can work on together.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Well, and now I'm curious again, from your perspective, because I can talk to you about from the Black perspective. We didn't really see character. So from your perspective, have you seen you know characters that really you felt were okay, like I said, really representational of the experiences that the true Asian culture experiences, type of thing? Or were you seeing the same things or dealing with the same things that you know we as blacks and African Americans are dealing with, this certain kind of stereotype of the stuff? We're starting to, obviously, now that again we're in this time where creators are they have the ability to tell their own stories in their own way and get it out there. We're starting to see a lot more diverse stories out there. Um, is that something that you've seen or thought to yourself, well, we're not really seeing a really wide variety of Asian characters being represented within the animation industry? Well, um, there's something that we need to do. Asian animation organization needs to champion more diversity. Is that something that you kind of thought about or saw when you watched a lot of the animations that you did watch, type of thing? Obviously, anime, you really
Yeah.
liked anime, but I mean, even within anime, I thought, which was very, it was great. I don't know if you saw Yusuke, you know,
I
and that's on
don't think
Netflix,
so.
and that
Oh, I
was
should check it out.
you should, because that was about the first black samurai. It was based on
Oh,
the
that's
first,
awesome.
yeah, the first black samurai. So that's what I mean as far as,
Mhm.
and the guy that's over that put it together, he's African American, and I think he just loves anime. So he went over to Japan and really learned the art of making anime, style, and told that story. But even from that kind of perspective of that, being able to tell your story in your own way, was that something that, like I said, was something that you saw was just not, you weren't seeing the characters that really kind of represented you or what you liked, or kind of not the stereotypical type of stuff? Like I said, there's a lot of, obviously, depth and stories within the Asian community that can be told. Not just fantastical stories, but love stories, all kinds of stories, that can be told. Is that something that you're hoping to see more of, and that you feel like the organization is really working to expose like you said, more, younger Asians, that this is a viable option and a viable path for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that we really care about here at Asians in Animation. I think one of the biggest splashes that happened in our community quite a few years ago was Ryan the Last Dragon.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
our
yeah. I love that.
our community really felt that it felt more like a blow than a boon,
Did it?
honestly. I think it's because um it felt very I don't know how to phrase it. Like it didn't feel very authentic. And
Yeah,
so and that's kind of like what you touched on is like the stereotypes. How are Asian people being represented on the big screen or in pieces of media? What can we do to tell authentic stories a little bit better? I think there has been a bit of a mixed reaction, but at least me personally, I really liked Turning Red, and I think that's a good it's a good example of like maybe an authentic, more Asian American kind of
hmm,
experience rather than like mainland Asian experiences
yeah,
because those are different as well. So that's
yeah,
something that we're also exploring here that Asians in animation. We have a mix of Asian Americans, people who grew up
yeah,
in the Americas or in the Western culture, but having our cultural background rooted in Asia.
yeah,
But we also have members of our community who are fully international. And so trying to make sure all of our voices are represented is really important in an authentic way. We found that even on screen, like um, most of the representation is in Asians. I'm Chinese myself, so that's also kind of an issue that we're very aware of. Is how do we get more representation to smaller Asian communities still within our group, giving them the voice that they deserve? How do we do that and there's less people, there's less other than East Asians, there's much less representation both behind the screen and on screen. So how do we uplift those voices? Uh, give those people the skills that they need to shine so
yeah.
that they can tell their stories.
I think it is funny because, like I said, I want to dive a little into that too, because it seems that's the main thread that goes through. And like I said, I've been to, Asians in animations. I've been to a couple of their meetings. I've been to a couple of Elixir's meetings as well. I've been to a couple of, Afro animations meetings as well. But that seems to be the thread that, runs through all of them, is that, they're all, fighting for this authentic version of, and more
Yeah,
stories, this more diverse story, and that they don't get that, the people that put it out there don't kind of get that even within a culture, there's such a wide
yeah,
diaspora.
absolutely.
And I've had that conversation uh, with a lot of my guests that are from Africa. It had the
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, a lot of people don't think, and we get over here, we kind of clump, the accent, and that's the thing that gets them when they listen, to stuff that comes out of the West that's supposed to be like African based. It's like they can pick up on the little small nuances, and they, say people forget that this country is big. There's like 50, 80, more than 60 languages
Yeah,
within this within this continent. And
it's
so,
huge.
even like I said, it's such a wide diaspora, even within a certain group, you
Yeah,
know.
I think like one thing that boom grappling is like, the title of Asian, like the Asian continent is so huge. How can you group all of us together just like African? The continent of Africa is so gigantic that,
Yeah,
there's so much diversity within that continent.
yeah.
How do we give people the space? Um, it's tough.
Well, but I think now, like I said, which is why this time encourages me, because now you got the tools are in the hands of those people that can tell their stories and say,
Yeah,
hey, this is how we talk in this region. I mean, the story is generalized, but you can clearly tell that this is, this certain region, and the dialect is true within that type of thing. So, like I said, I think, you know, artists are starting to see the power that's within their hands of being able to tell their own stories and stuff. But I'm curious.
Yeah. Oh, that's also I wanted to touch on something that, a pretty special project that I'm running at Asians in Animation that touches on what you were saying is I'm currently running a program that we've dubbed the 4P
Yeah, I
program,
was
which
gonna
is called
ask
the
you about that.
Pilot Pre-Production Program. So it's kind of exactly what you said. We wanted to mirror an industry experience one to one. At least both me and the executive producer of this program, we both come from TV animation, specifically 2D TV animation. So
Hmm.
that's what we're really passionate about. So we wanted to give that the industry knowledge and creative experience with the wider community, people who are ready and able to show off their skills to create something cool and create our own story, wanted to give them a chance to do that. So with me as the producer, I'm helming the production experience in terms of creating the structure of the show. How is it running similarly to an industry pipeline? And then creatively, my partner, as the EP, is creatively running the show, to raise up an authentic Asian story.
Yeah.
Um, so it's been
Hey,
a really, really tough project, but really, really rewarding. We're still building up our crew, so
awesome.
and working on it together. Still ongoing.
Awesome, awesome. And that brings me, like I said, I want to ask a couple of questions in the sense of, because I was wondering this as I was sitting through all the meetings that I had gone through at the different organizations. Do you feel like there's an opportunity um, for us to come together? Because as I was sitting through that, I was like, we're all struggling. We're all going after this same thing, representation.
Yeah.
That one thing that we have, that one thread that we have in common. Um, do you see that that's an opportunity where we as all these different organizations can come together and really make an impact and a statement with working together, and that's something I would hope to see more of these opportunities where we are able to kind of cross pollinate each other and work together, because like I said, we are all going after this same kind of notion of representation and diversity.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if we could work together more. It hasn't really been on our radar, but it's something we can definitely work towards more.
Okay. Well, I definitely, like I
Absolutely.
said, am gonna, because I've been wanting to get more, AIA members on, and executive directors. Um, and for me, I know, when I talk, like I said, diversity and inclusion, when I speak of it, I'm more thinking, like I said, kind of more the executive level, because I see a lot of artists that are getting hired at studios and getting work and things like that. But like you said, those positions where the stories are more greenlit or at that
Yeah.
level to where they're greenlit, is that something that you think about of as far as you're seeing Asians that are in more higher positions that are able to greenlight more shows like Red, or that are more truer to something that Asians would be okay with? Okay, we could get behind this, and it's something. Are you starting to see more Asians getting into more higher level executive positions that are in those positions to be able to green light those stories?
I think slowly but surely. It's a little bit hard to say. I can only speak to the studios that I've worked with.
Yeah,
So currently on JENTRY, the executive who greenlit that show was Asian. So I can say for a fact that she cared a lot about telling an authentic story, and she was really behind our show during that time. Netflix was actually canceling and cutting a lot of shows at the time. So we were almost afraid that we were going to be on the chopping block because
yeah,
it's an Asian story. Maybe it's not as popular with general audiences as most normal executives would think, but
yeah.
our executive kind of vouched for us and really supported us in terms of keeping our show running. They did make a lot of changes in the show, but it also is due to our showrunner, who's stuck behind her story, um, to try and tell as an authentic story to herself as
Yeah.
possible.
Well, when you say they made a lot of changes, are you talking Netflix made a lot of changes to the story, or the higher level executives of, I guess, the studio creating the animation made changes?
Yeah, so yeah, the Netflix executives
Ah,
did have
gotcha.
a hand, and so it was a little bit unique where not another thing that I was a little bit surprised with is that we had one main executive that was like that was with our show since it was greenlit, had our backs, but um throughout the creation of the show, we realized that it wasn't just that executive who had a say in our show. There were also executives outside of that one who were also chiming in on our show, which
Yeah.
I don't know how orthodox that is compared to a lot of larger studios. But not sure, but that's how it happened.
Well, what percentage of the content that Titmouse creates is kind of episodic as opposed to just straight? Because I know that was a thing that I found interesting about Netflix when I was talking to Everett. Like when they were pitching My Dad the Bounty Hunter, they were pitching it as one
Hmm.
whole, just one seat, one movie type of thing. And Netflix really wanted them to chop it up into episodes, I guess, obviously to keep people on the platform watching it for a while. But what percentage of the content that Titmouse creates would you say is episodic as opposed to just straight, animated movie or animated, project?
It's a little hard. I think most of it is episodic at Titmouse. Most of them are TV shows, I'd say. Yeah, rather than all the way through. Titmouse does a few like special projects, but those are much like on smaller scales. They're like usually like advertisements and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all the way through, but they're only one single contained thing, and their runtime is usually a lot shorter.
Gotcha, gotcha. Everybody, like I said, just tuning in. We are coming up on an hour and a half, sitting down having a great conversation with my friend Alice Yang, production assistant. Um, Alice, like I said, you're still fresh in the industry, and kind of like I said, you're just on the beginning kind of cusp of your journey. But what's been kind of the best piece of advice that somebody's given you that's really helped you along the way?
Hmm. Best piece of advice that someone else gave me?
Yeah.
Let me think. Hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like professional related, industry or professional related. Just, it could be some advice your mother gave you that just really, or your parents gave you that really just helped keep you guided in certain things.
Yeah, I think it wasn't like a specific piece of advice, but I think one of my professors back at school gave me some really good advice at the very beginning was that networking piece. Really valuing my network, but also um being consistent, consistently pursuing your goal. Uh that was really important as well because it's very easy to get downhearted, especially when the industry is turbulent, but always keeping your goal in mind and keeping your network in mind, merging those together.
Gotcha, gotcha. And you guys obviously know how I like to do it. Great advice. You
Hey,
got to drop a bomb. Do you creatively? Because, like I said, production assistant, you don't have your hands in the work anymore. What do you do creatively to kind of balance that all the stress and stuff that you have to manage and juggle with your production assistant job? How do you, creatively kind of scratch that itch, so to speak?
yeah, at least for me, I suppose like two different paths. For one, I it's a little bit strange to hear, but I do view production work as creative work.
Okay.
There's a lot of creative problem solving needed to it, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I think I wouldn't pursue production if I didn't feel that passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's part of the answer. But also outside of work, I think that's where I find a lot of my creative fulfillment. Um, I like anime a lot and I actually cosplay, so a lot of my creative ambitions kind of go on a very like outside route. I I'm still dipping my toes in, but I like to sew and I make props and stuff.
Okay.
So it's very different from like actual animation industry specific things.
Well, as we, like I said, kind of bring this train into the station, um, I want to ask you a couple of more questions. One, um, for you, like I said, you seem pretty, grounded and that you're able to handle, like I said, stressful kind of situations and things like that. But has there been something? What thing has kind of taken you to that kind of stress point that you've had to do? That was like, man, this is really taking me to the edge here, just having to get it done. Well, can you, give a sample of something that, maybe a future production assistant might have to encounter that might take them close to, just that edge of, wow, questioning.
Yeah, there were like I might present it as smooth sailing. Definitely has not been smooth sailing all the way. Um, I think there was a moment on Gentry where things got very, very tough for me, and I think it was a period of around 2 months that was very, very difficult. And it was a variety of factors that caused that situation. For one, um our show originally, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but basically we were supposed to be a shorter show, but each episode got longer, there's more
Mm,
content involved,
yeah,
but our schedule didn't change to reflect that. And so, and also, with delays and stuff, things kind of got out of order. So during that period of 2 months, our overlap was very, very crunched. Um and it was because certain things that were happening at the pipeline. We were still doing storyboard. We were still doing design at the same time we were doing retakes. And things were overlapping in a very basically not a great way.
yeah,
Um, in addition, I don't think my the leadership were having disagreements.
yeah,
So what was really tough about that situation was trying to manage the workload. Um, when the deadlines were really, really tight and managing creative expectations. That
yeah,
was one of the toughest things I think as production. And then I'm learning on my current show that was something that was pretty unacceptable for me as a production assistant to deal with. Um, at my level, I was being asked to do things that I really was out of my pay grade. So
yeah,
that was a really difficult situation to be in. So when I had to really lean on my coordinators, my inner strength, my family as well,
yeah,
to give me like the strength to have difficult conversations with my superiors
yeah,
and kind of draw that line on those
yeah.
workplace boundaries.
Yeah, well, I think that's obviously where a lot of creatives get caught, caught up, not being able to voice their opinion about things. Not being a jerk about it, but just voicing your opinion that, I don't agree with this or I'm not liking the way this is going type of thing for sure. Which,
Yeah, it was a
you
new thing that I had to learn.
well, that's a quick thing because obviously, in the industry, mental health is
Yeah.
a big thing. And I think that plays a big part in, your mental health, being able to at least feel
Yeah.
like, hey, even though I'm not running things, I do feel like I have a voice to voice my opinion on, something I'm not happy with something, even though it may not get changed when I need it or at all, but I can
Yeah.
still voice and feel like I'm heard type of thing. Um, is that something that, through your connections and your friends that they talk about just the mental health of what they deal with within their jobs type of thing and try to keep themselves, on track?
Yeah, I think when things get tough, on our show, we were like, we're on the struggle bus together. So we were constantly kind of sharing how we were feeling, even when things were getting tough. But there was also some internal conflict. So um, just a workplace situation that was pretty unacceptable. So having other people to talk to was really, really important. My mind definitely was getting really messed up with the situation.
Yeah.
I was really struggling, but
Well,
having
do
an
your
outside
friends,
perspective
I mean,
was
do your
good.
other friends that, that are, you know, at different studios and in are different positions. Is that a thing that they talk about too, as far as just the stress of what they may be dealing with or having to deal with type of thing of having to balance that as well?
Totally, yeah. I think in production, we're like the epicenter of a lot of stressors on a show. So it's something that we talk about. What I mean, as things come up, but also, as a topic in and of itself, like when we get stressed, how things get stressful. What can we do to, I hope to go up in production. What kind of like healthier systems can we put up in place to like maybe reduce those kinds of situations, make things better overall? It's
Yeah,
not going to happen overnight, but hopefully I think being more cognizant of those of mental health and building like a sustainable pipeline
yeah,
is something that I talk a lot about with my production friends.
yeah. Um, and with that, like I said, as we kind of close this out, you briefly mentioned kind of climbing a little. Where do you see this last question? Where do you see you're wanting to go? How high are you wanting to go? Do you want to direct? Do you want to really get into how high do you want to get in this industry? And what are the things that you really want to kind of go towards?
Yeah, we'll see how high I can go, but honestly, I hope to become a line producer someday.
Okay.
We'll see if I can make it happen, but I do want to stay in production, which is more like, the
Yeah.
non-creative aspect of things. But as high as I'll go there.
So for maybe the non-person or the person just getting into it, what is a line producer, and you know, is that the highest level of production in kind of the area where you're wanting to stay at, or and what does that entail?
Yeah, so within production, there's like a few different scales. Like on the production, there's usually PAs, production assistants, production coordinators, production managers, or assistant production managers, depending on which studio you're at. Then above that, usually is like a producer or a line producer. So their job is usually a little bit different from actually managing the show.
Uh-huh.
Um, a lot of line producers are there at the beginning, helping to sometimes they help the show get greenlit, but they usually are in charge of the budget overall
Mm,
on the show and talking with the studios and getting that budget and the crew uh like managing all of that. So making sure that the budget and the schedule kind of are aligned because time is money in that kind of realm. So making sure that those two are working together effectively. Line producers generally are also managing a few shows at once. So they'll also, help. They're the people usually who are hiring other people. They are determining the crew along with, they'll get input from directors and whoever like wants to hire
yeah.
artists, but at the end of the day they're the ones also talking with HR, managing those work contracts. um so a little bit different but still just as important. And there's
Uh,
also um uh I think also really fun about them is that they get to see a bunch of different shows. They get to work on a lot of different shows at a high level.
gotcha. Well, like I said, amazing stuff. And you know, always I'm always asking myself, like, you see the job title, but you're not exactly sure what they do, type of thing. So getting insight to that and really letting people know that, hey, this is something that I might like doing, and I'm pretty good at doing. Would want to get into. Uh, Man, we are an hour and a half into this, and so, like I said, to be respectful, definitely of my guest, Alice, and definitely want to bring you back on for sure, to the show. We're gonna kind of bring this train back into the station here. Uh, as we do, make sure that you connect with Alice on all her social platforms, that you can also, you can connect with Asians in Animation. They're on Instagram. Definitely be a part of the newsletter. Definitely go to the website and check them out, Asians in Animation. You can connect with Alice on LinkedIn as well. I'm definitely going to be, connecting with you because I definitely want to get more, the directors of Asian in Animation on the show and just kind of see like I said, how we can, as all these different groups can kind of connect and maybe do something, see what each other's on. My whole
Yeah.
thing about the show is connecting and working
Yeah.
together.
We're definitely stronger together.
Stronger together than we are apart. And I can just only imagine, what kind of thing that could be produced when we come together and work together as a collective. I like that idea. Like I said, we're all working on things. Definitely find out more about the 4P
Yeah.
4P project. Like I said, and what's going on there. And definitely, like I said, make sure that you get plugged in not only to the group, the show, but check out, like I said, Asians in Animation and what they're doing, because, like I said, we're all about this push for diversity and really changing the narrative of the stories that are being told. All right. Like I said, as we kind of close this out here, Miss Anise, fantastic interview. I'm glad you enjoyed it, for sure. Thank you for stopping by, Miss Maggie, Granny. Appreciate you stopping by as well. Like I said, season 5. This is a monumental season, 2025. One, because we hit 5 years this year, and 2, before the year is up, we will have hit 200 episodes, over 200 episodes. So 2025 is going to be a big year, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Didn't get any subscribers during this episode, but again, if you watch this, if you subscribe during the live show to the YouTube channel, you got some swag coming to you and some gifts coming to you. So, like I said, this year is the year of celebrating here, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And our guest and friend Alice is, like I said, raised the bar yet another notch for next week's guest.
Oh, thank you.
So this year is just, like I said, is stacking one on top of the other, and it's getting better and better. So again, Alice, if you could hang out in the green room while I close this out, I'd appreciate it, so I can talk to you for a second after the show. But everybody, please help me thank again my very special guest and friend, Miss Alice Jiang, for coming on and gracing us with her knowledge and presence.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much, Don.
Awesome.
So fun talking to you.
Yeah, hang out for a second while I close this out, Alice. Everybody, like I said, this has been another great episode. Man, words just cannot express how I feel when I do this show. Like I said, doing it 5 years is blowing me away. Like I said, I didn't expect it to last this long. Hitting over 200 episodes this season is going to be another milestone. The friends that I've made that have come on and made this a great show is, you can't put words to you, the viewers, for coming by and giving me a little time every Saturday afternoon, because you don't have to do it. But you doing that definitely fuels into this 5-year stretch as well. So I can't thank you enough for always, supporting the show. And like I said, Alice raised the bar yet another notch, but I am confident next week's guest is going to rise to the challenge, and you definitely don't want to miss out on next week's guest. I'm super excited to be welcoming Mr. Sean Landrum, director, writer, and producer, filmmaker extraordinaire, coming on to the show and having a great conversation as well. Like I said, we're starting to see a lot of, and we touched on this on the show, starting to see a lot of indie creators. And you know me, I am a proponent of indie creators. And so definitely want to connect with as many as I can. Well, this has been another great episode. If you missed out, definitely hop back on over to the to the channel. All the show notes will be up there. All of Alice's information will be up on the show notes as well. Definitely get plugged in, and you don't want to miss out, like I said, on next week's episode. So get plugged in, and you'll get notified. But I will see you next week. Have a great rest of your weekend. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.